My grapevines are flowering. Come join me in the chaos. Tons of these flowers. So this is what they look like right before they open. So it's a flower cluster, hasn't quite opened yet. A lot of people might see these and just think that they're grapes, and those are not actually grapes yet. They're not even flowers yet. Those are just flower buds. I have some that are open that I'll show you in just a moment. So lots of clusters. Normally you'll want to remove some of these, but these ones are just going to be decoration. They're just going up onto my gazebo here. And so these ones aren't necessarily for taste. But yeah, having too many clusters on one vine might be an issue. This is also a 4th-year vine, so I think it would probably be okay. I mean, it's about 4 inches wide. So might be able to support it if I was going to be going for the best fruit set. Let me see if I can find a, oh, here we go. So if you look right here, this is what they look like when the flowers open up. You look really close, you can see the little pollen carriers, the stamens, anthers, covered with pollen. It looks like there's a little spider trying to capitalize on potential insects. I get a lot of like wolf spiders and jumping spiders that love hanging out on my grape flowers, just waiting for pollinators. And I typically notice that flies, these little house flies, love to hang out on my grape flowers. So I don't know if that's normal, the normal method of pollination, or I think it's probably wind. And the smallest amount of branch even shaking is going to transfer pollen from the anthers to the stamen. And these are all common grapes, also known as Vitis Vinifera. Specifically, these are called Thompson seedless. On this left side is Thompson, right side's Red Flame. An easy way that I tell the difference between these is the sepal, I think, the leaf stem on Thompson is green, whereas the leaf on Red Flame has a little bit more pigment in it, has like a reddish color. But otherwise, the leaves are pretty similar. I mean, at a glance, I can tell the difference just because I've looked at them so much, just by the shape and how far it goes in on the leaves. There's a few other things. If you're a viticulturist, a grape nerd like I am, you get used to what the leaves look like and you just know at a glance what they are. So if you're a grape person, you'll know that that's Thompson. You'll know that that's Red Flame. Over here I have some fox grapes. So Vitis Labrusca, this is a hybrid between Thompson seedless and Concord, typically called Tomcord. And these have like a lighter color to them. And they almost look hairy on the bottom, like a light downy fur on them. And again, these ones are actually flowering pretty well too. In about probably a week, you'll notice the fruit set where these little round things right here. See those? Those are all the ovary of the plant. And that round thing is actually what's going to turn into the berry once it's fertilized. Actually, I have some fruit set starting right here. You can see that here. Notice that the anthers are starting to fall off and they've already swollen. So if I compare these two flowers, you'll notice that the ovaries are significantly larger on these than those. Okay, that's the part that's going to turn into the grape berry. And these Tomcords are a hybrid, like I said, of Thompson seedless and Concord. And I love the flavor of Concord. Like when you buy the grape juice from the store, the purple grape juice, the Welch's. The Welch's is from Concord grapes. So these taste very similar to Concord grape juice. Delicious grapes. And that's what the flowers look like. It's kind of exciting to see all these things flowering out. And I might thin a little bit here. This is a second year vine, so I don't want to really force it to do more than, say, 6 to 12 clusters of grapes. And it looks like, just at a quick glance, I would say I probably have about 30 clusters on this thing. So having this much fruit on such a tiny, I mean, look how much smaller this grapevine is compared to the one over there. This one's not even, I mean, at the very base, it's not even an inch wide yet. So in my opinion, I would say it's not ready for too many clusters of grapes. So I'm going to trim off a bunch of these just to make sure that the grapes that do develop are going to be much higher quality. Instead of distributing that sugar to, 30 clusters, I'd rather distribute those same amount of sugars to, say, 6 clusters, and you'll get actually much larger grape berries themselves. This one's typically used for juice, so it might not even matter. As long as you let them stay on the vine until they're completely ripe. Something interesting about grapes compared to a lot of fruit that you can just pick and let ripen off the vine. Grapes, I've tried this because someone told me that they do not ripen once they're picked, and they're right. Once you pick them, the amount of sweetness that they have stays constant. So you're going to want to leave them on the vine and let the flavor of the grapes develop until you pick them. Which is one of the problems with grapes, is once they're ripe, you better pick them, or the birds and nature are going to make them either fall off the vine or start rotting. You kind of have to pick them all at once. These are just such beautiful vines. My favorite's the Vitis Labrusca. I love that fox grape look. And like I said, the underside of the leaf, you can really see how it's a different color. Whereas the Vitis Vinifera will be essentially the same color on both sides because they don't have that downy underside. I'm not sure what the function is. I do know that the Labruscas happen to be a lot more cold tolerant. I don't know if that has anything to do with the downy underside, but I would speculate that it does. Perhaps it prevents airflow, preventing frost damage, but again, I have no idea. But very vigorous once it takes off. First year I barely saw any growth, but man, this second year it's been growing incredibly well. I've been actually terminating some of these ends just so it doesn't take over this entire side of the garden, just because now I have a lot of grapevines that need to share real estate. So I love that thing. Here's a little experiment that I have going. I was intending on making like a bonsai tree right here out of a grapevine, and so I've been pruning this one really hard, just trying to give it a trunk. So I probably will clip all the fruit off of this one. I don't really want this one to fruit. I want all of its energy to go into leaves, and I'm going to cut it back pretty hard again here in another week. And I'm trying to basically have it have a thick trunk and just a few branches so that it'll literally look like a tree, but it's still a work in progress. But again, another example of what they look like as the fruit begins to set. If you look really close, you can see some of these haven't opened yet. Some of them have already opened. And I don't know if I have any actual fruit set on that one. I think I have a few right here. Like, you'll notice a few look bigger than others. That might just be an unopened bud, actually, now that I look closer at it. So those might not be fertilized yet. So I think my Labrusca is my only one that has some fruits that are already starting up. And I think that means that'll probably have fruit first. Let's take a look over here. Oh, my banana tree's coming up right here. I thought that thing was dead. I have a little grape hideout, but it's kind of become this little grape nook right here. Some flowers going on over here. And this one I believe is a 2, maybe 3rd year vine. Grown really well. A little bit of fruit set. Oh, cute. Little jumping spider. Love these little things. These and assassin bugs prevent me from really having any trouble. I used to get hornworms and things like that. The assassin bugs will just pounce on the hornworms and just suck all the juice out of them. Tons of assassin bugs this year. I don't see any right now, but I usually will see a lot of them just around. This is a first year. Last year I had a vine coming off of this guy, and I ran it along the ground, under the ground, and then I layered it up here like a whip layer. People call it a whip graft, and just tied it up here. And during the winter I cut it, separated it, and it looks like it's exploding with growth. So obviously it has some pretty good roots. So this is a new vine that's a layering success. Lots of buds. Doesn't look like it has any flower set yet. That's interesting that the Labrusca is so much faster than the Vinifera in forming fruit. So probably going to be another week before you start noticing some fruit set. But lots of flowers / flower buds. Notice here lots of little tiny flower buds that haven't quite opened yet. And to prevent like crazy long vines, usually once they get about that long or so, I'll just terminate the tips of them. And that'll keep it more controlled. It doesn't take over the whole garden. A lot of these I've already terminated. Stomping on some weeds. These two need to be terminated a little bit. Coming to see what I'm doing. Some water spinach right here. That's chewing on that stuff. Some weeds here just stomping on. He's a good boy. Don't really want this going out of the bottom here, so this is a really easy fix. And this is actually really good propagation material. I noticed that these suckers will have tons of stem cells on them. So if you can get them to tear off real clean like this, and if you look really close, you'll have, if I get this to focus, you'll have like 2, 3, sometimes 4 nodes in very close sequence here. So like I have 1, 2, 3 nodes right here. Little rooting hormone. Stick this in a cup and trim off most of this. Maybe leave 1 leaf, a few buds, and this will root really quick. These will usually root in about 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Sometimes faster, especially with the rooting hormone. And this is a red flame. You can tell by looking at it. I don't really need more red flame. Labruscas are my favorite now, so I'm not going to propagate this. But easy way to propagate, just use those suckers. Another one right here. Easy propagation material. I usually put those right at the base. My dog kind of gets really curious when these things are new. I can probably come off now. He doesn't really chew on stuff unless it's green. He just loves the crunch of digging into stuff. He's really curious. And he explores his world with his mouth and his teeth, just like any other dog. And I've trained him pretty well to avoid certain plants, but still, sometimes the temptation's overwhelming for him, and he'll just sink his teeth into stuff. But I've noticed after the vines are about 2 or 3 years old, he completely ignores them. These grapevines are actually pretty toxic to dogs anyway, so I'd rather him not experiment with chewing on them and getting sick. I don't know what the chemical is in them, but something in them really damages dogs' livers. This video is getting pretty long. Oh yeah, there's one more thing I wanted to mention. Can't see it from here. So if you come over here with me, an example of layering that I did, I left this really long vine go all the way around back here, all the way behind my lemon tree, all the way along here, and then I buried it down here. Another whip graft, and then brought it up here. And this all died back in the winter. It all went dormant, and so it's all waking up. It's under the ground here, and I have a pretty good feeling there's a decent amount of root growth, but I'm just gonna leave it connected to the mother vine. But This winter, I'll separate that from the mother vine. So I'll cut there, probably cut near the ground over here. And then this new grapevine that came up out of the end of that long cane will be a autonomous grapevine. It'll be completely separate, standalone. It's a very easy way to propagate grapevines. Literally take anything like this and just bury the halfway point in the ground and have the end come up. And 9 times out of 10, that material will just end up rooting, forming roots and creating a new plant. So tons of grapevines. If you love grapes, that's an easy way to get tons. If you don't like grapes, then obviously don't do that. I just think grapes are gorgeous. Hope this helps you.